You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that is honest, reveals the facts, truth, and statistics, and does not mess around. Follow me, Taylor Phillips, on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Email me at TaylorGatorPhillips14@yahoo.com. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313, and go to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join our Facebook group with the same name. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast on Spreaker is also available on iHeartRadio and SoundCloud. Also a subsidiary of Sports Radio Detroit, thus available on iTunes and Podbean. This podcast is particularly not for entertainment purposes, and the views expressed by the host of this podcast are opinion-based. However, they do not come without facts, research, statistics, and truth, whether other people like it or not, and no matter how harsh or complicated it may be. This is the Michigan Sports Truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
Hey there, Michigan sports fanatics, and welcome to the Michigan Sports Truth, episode 253 on Spreaker. I'm Taylor Phillips, along with Ed Smith. How are you doing, Ed?
Doing quite well, Taylor. Thanks for having me on again for another great week.
Absolutely. We got a lot to get to, but first, this is a major, big story that we are covering right now, and it's very, very serious.
Oh, man!
It has to do with USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University. Former USA Gymnastics Dr. Larry Nassar was charged with 22 counts of sexual assault, and now he has 25 counts with state court and 3 child pornography charges in federal court.
Are you kidding me with this?
And more charges to come later. He's formally arraigned Thursday on 22 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct, and 14 lesser included alternative charges of third-degree criminal sexual conduct. He's being held by federal authorities without bond on other charges. All charges relate to 9 accusers, some of whom are now adults. According to court records, the victims say they were sexually assaulted during medical appointments. All 9 said Nassar's treatments included digital, vaginal, or anal penetration without consent. All are women, so only vaginal. More than half the new charges directly relate to his work as a doctor at Michigan State University's sports medicine practice, and the rest are tied to his work with a gymnastics club. Previous charges do not relate to Nassar's role as a doctor. This is all according to the Lansing State Journal. And previous charges do not relate to Nassar's role as a doctor. 5 of those counts that Nassar is facing right now involved girls who are under the age of 13, and the rest involve girls between ages 13 and 16. This is almost evenly very disgusting. And Nassar, and to top the big, giant, humongous cherry on top of a small sundae, Nassar is 53 freaking years old. Matt Newberg, one of Nassar's attorneys,
Oh, man! Are you kidding me with this?
declined to comment after the hearing. Nassar worked for decades, Nassar previously denied any wrongdoing and said he performed legitimate medical procedures. He worked for decades with MSU and with USA Gymnastics. The university fired him in September, and he left USA Gymnastics in fall 2015 with little notice because he tried to run away from the truth. But it has been noted that more than 80 victims have come forward to accuse Nassar of sexual assault, according to officials at a press conference this past Wednesday. Nassar, in result, could face up to life in prison if convicted. A pre-exam and probable cause hearing are scheduled for March 2nd, which is my sister's birthday, which is next week, Thursday. The upcoming Thursday. So this is a no-brainer, and more importantly than that, it's very disgusting, very disrespectful to the female species and the male species as well. There was no winner on either side of that case.
No, you're absolutely right, Taylor. There wasn't. No matter what happens as a result of this court case, obviously there's been a side as court, especially if you believe the victims. Numerous occasions where they were victimized in this by this man. Well, I can't even call him a man, by this monster, this very disturbed person, because this is disgusting, but it's also disturbing and disrespectful, and just flat out sick. It is we do have to caution some of our viewers, some of our listeners as well. This is a case that involves a very sensitive and sensitive subject matter. So some of the descriptions and the context that you're hearing, obviously, maybe a little bit disturbing to hear, but they are the facts. They are what's being reported, and it just shows the level of depravity that went on with this person during this time through all these years. It should not be seen as a reflection of the university or the school. Only a select few individuals who not only carried on with this just beyond disgusting acts of humanity, but also, the apparent cover-up it's seen, because like I mentioned, there was one instance where the gymnastics coach knew what was going on, at least knew a little bit of what was going on, and did nothing to stop from any of this from happening any further. So I'm sure there are levels of this that goes deep that's going to be unraveled little by little as this case goes on. But I think we have to commend the university by how they've reacted as soon as they possibly found out as much information as they possibly did, to not only oust the person or the central figures of all of this, but also let them know that their views and their actions and their ways in no way, shape, or form represent the university. So I commend them for that. But it's going to take a long time. No matter how you think it's connected or not, it's going to take a while to erase the stigma that this whole thing has caused upon the university. Not just gymnastics, USA Gymnastics, or even University of Michigan State University of Gymnastics. The whole school as whole has been blemished by this horrible acts.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think Nassar should face at least a significant amount of time in prison, if not a lifetime imprisonment.
Well, with the way the evidence apparently has been mounting up, and all these apparent alleged victims, like you said, 80 or so have come out so far. It seemed like there's not always a slam dunk case. Sometimes crazier things have happened where the prosecution didn't do a good enough job, or the defense found a loophole. But unless something truly insane happens, it would be safe to say this is an open and shut case, and hopefully at least a measure of justice will be served in this instance for the people that was victimized by this very deplorable human being.
Yeah, and there's no doubt. Personally, I think he should serve life in prison. That's the max. That's my maximum punishment for Larry Nassar. That's as far as I can go. So,
it certainly warrants a crime. So I have no problem agreeing with you on that one.
Yep, we'll have to see what kind of punishment he gets the forthcoming Thursday. So with all that, being cleared up, we're going to segue to Michigan State's Spartan sports here.
Valentine for the win!
Well, that didn't take long, but we had to clear that up. Very serious, but of course that was a no-brainer. That's why it didn't take so long. But moving on here, the Spartans got rocked by the then 16th ranked Purdue Boilermakers, now ranked 14th, 80-63 in West Lafayette last Saturday. In that game, though, guard Aaron Harris sprained his left knee and will miss the rest of the season after having surgery. But then the Spartans returned home last Thursday night, and they clobbered the Nebraska Cornhuskers 88-72, simply because Tom Izzo promoted Alvin Ellis finally to the starting lineup, and Alvin Ellis proved himself, scoring double digits. And of course, Miles Bridges did his thing, and Cassius Winston did a little bit from the bench. So the win after the injury, what do you make of it?
The injury, first and foremost, bad timing, horrible timing. You never want to go into the tournament with any type of injury that might have been suffered by a key player that either keeps them out either for the injury for the rest of the season, or or a similar timetable. Now, granted, this is something that the Michigan State's been dealing with for a while. I remember there was a time when Miles Bridges had his injury issues, for instance. Luckily, he was able to recover in time. It seems a good thing because without his play, along with a couple other people, Nick Ward comes to mind. I'm not sure Michigan State has a strong enough case to build towards a possible tournament resume, but they've needed those type of players to help keep them through this part of the schedule here. So suffering another injury of this nature would be, like I said, another horrible case of bad timing. I will say they did a good job of recovering from the Purdue game. They got absolutely bitch slapped by Purdue and Caleb Swanigan, which probably doesn't bode well for my Wolverines. We'll get to that in a little bit while. But they recovered well. Had a great showing at home. You mentioned Alvin Ellis being moved to the starting lineup. I thought was a great move. Nairn Jr. Tom Nairn was just not getting it done, and a move needed to be made, especially when you're a bubble team like Michigan State is. You have very little room for marginal error here. So Izzo needed to make the move that was needed to be done, and so far it's working out good. So we'll have to see how much more it can work for the team as we have 3 games left in the regular season. So it is essentially as close to nut cutting time as you can possibly get. So Michigan State needs all their ducks in a row to have a strong finish, not just regular season wise, but also in the conference tournament to strengthen their case. Because, like I said, since you're a bubble team, you can't take anything up for chance or for granted.
Yeah, you mentioned Laurel's Tum Nairn Jr. Right now he's a sophomore, I think, but either that or a junior. But either way, Laurel's Tum Nairn Jr. didn't improve much, except he picked up 7 points, which is a little bit better and not too terrible than how many points he averages this season. How many points he has averaged this season, and I think I'm not. Call me crazy, but my opinion is this: Tom Izzo's promotion of Alvin Ellis III to the starting lineup may have given Tom at least a little bit of fuel, if not some.
It was the motivation to let them know, hey, your spot could be up here. We're taking all lineup options into consideration. Fine, I guess you could go with that. But you mentioned the 7 points. Only got 5 of those from the free throw line. He still only made 1 shot from the field in this game against Nebraska. So I'm not sure how much of a fire lit under his ass, but apparently very little.
Mm-hmm. So the Spartans, by the way, still no word on Dan Dakich, what punishment he's going to get, the ESPN color commentator and talk show host from Indiana. We discussed Tom Izzo firing back at Dan Dakich last week on our episode 252, on our last episode. And of course, Dakich still owes the fans an apology. But that being said, the Spartans play their last home game of the season against the 16th ranked Wisconsin Badgers Sunday at 4 on CBS. It's going to be a big one. We remember the Wolverines pulling out the upset 63-58 about a couple weeks ago at Chrysler Center when the Badgers were ranked 11th. That was the Badgers' second consecutive loss overall and in the conference. And the Spartans, all they have to do is just follow suit and just step it up a couple notches.
Well, it's going to depend not just, Wisconsin probably having an off night like they did against Michigan, but it's going to take a lot of people contributing, i.e. one of those players being Tom Nairn. You know what you're going to get from Miles Bridges and Nick Ward, so you're not feeling too worried about those players. But when you're going against a team as talented and stacked as Purdue, you need as much help as possible from all options and all of your starters. And Nairn, if he's going to be still a starter, he's going to bring his effort and is going to have to bring his A game, in my opinion, for Michigan State to have a chance.
And speaking of the Michigan Wolverines, by the way, we have a Spartan football news update to pass along to you guys.
Touchdown, MSU!
Linebacker John Reschke has left MSU and decides to transfer after making an insensitive comment about a teammate. The teammate's name is undisclosed, but Graham Couch tweeted Reschke's statement, a screenshot of Reschke's statement to Michigan State University and its football program. Reschke apologized to not only his teammate, but the rest of his team, and he regrets to inform them that he's seeking a graduate transferal to play his final year of college football in another NCAA football university.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Reschke the guy who made that tweet last summer about Michigan, countdown until Michigan players would essentially be handcuffed, being locked into Spartan Stadium as Michigan played Michigan State? And then what happened? Michigan went out there and did their business and handled Michigan State and won the game. So there was not a lot of chirping from Reschke on that account, so I'm not surprised he once again had a case of put your foot in your mouth-itis, where he makes a dumbass statement and then has to live with the public fallout as a result.
Oh, man, yeah. Speaking of disgusting, that's it right there. You should never talk about any of your teammates in that kind of form, period.
I understand probably, little side digging to help motivate each other, but this is probably taking a bit step too far, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh, you mean Reschke making his move to transfer to another NCAA football university?
Not the move. It's like I said. It's the fallout from him making his comments that he made that you were referring to. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, there was some fallout that even I can't identify, that I can't even lay a fingertip on.
But still, it's just another case of making yourself look bad. It was just, again, another instance of him making himself look bad, and by extension, making the football team look bad.
Yeah, and sound bad as well. And the athletic the athletic department looked bad as well. It's a contagious disease. Hate's a strong word.
Yeah, contagious and infectious in the wrong term, because it seems like it's in terms of making the university or making the athletic program look bad. We're seeing a rash of that having transpire in this month alone.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. So with that, it's time to move on to your Michigan Wolverines now.
For three, yes, sir.
Sad to see Richke go, by the way. The Wolverines fell flat 83-78 in overtime at the Minnesota Golden Gophers. We saw the same old Zach Irvin in that game. DJ Wilson tied the game just before the buzzer with 1.9 seconds to go to force overtime. But Michigan was off to a slow start in overtime, and they paid for it, and they could not come back, could not recover from that. Gophers ended up winning that game. So, Ed, what were your thoughts on that one?
Great effort to it was a back and forth game. It was at one point, Michigan had they made their comeback because it seemed like Minnesota, they couldn't pull away just enough to keep Michigan down. So credit for the Wolverines for not giving up, because they recognized this was a game they needed to win, or they needed to have as badly as possible to help out their resumes. They are a bubble team in their own right. You mentioned the shot by Wilson, clutch shot, gave me some Trey Burke memories in a way, which makes sense since he does wear the number 3 that Burke used to wear. I'm talking about DJ Wilson. Excuse me, my apologies. I believe he wears number 5. I'm thinking of something else, but still, the shot in terms of Michigan needing a shot like that to help keep their chances, their hopes alive, gave me some Trey Burke flashbacks. So, unfortunately, they couldn't quite pull off all the way because it was just too much hero ball in that overtime period, particularly by Zach Irvin, parking his ass outside the three-point line, trying to find a screen, get behind someone, take a very low-quality shot and pray that it goes in. That's not how you strategize things. I think they need to do a better job of moving the ball around, try to use some type of penetration to get yourself an open look from outside. Morris Wagner fouling out overtime did not help matters out either. And in the end, it just came down to Minnesota hitting their free throws for one, and just hitting their shots. Derek Walton tried to tie the game up late with a 3 of his own. He had a good luck. Unfortunately, it just rattled in and out.
Close. No cigar,
Walton, though. Yeah, you feel bad for Walton at the very least, because he seems to be one of the only seniors that's played this year that look like he gives a shit out there on the floor. I can't say the same for any of the other seniors, most especially Zach Irvin. But Walton seems like he cared a little bit. So his reaction, I felt for him on that one. So that was a tough loss. There's nothing else you can do but just move on to the next game, man. That's exactly what they did here in this game against Rutgers. Again, a little bit more closer margin, I think, than a lot of people would have hoped, because it's Rutgers. It's not exactly a big. I was going to say this is one of the worst teams in the conference. They're 2-13, only had 2 wins in the conference at a whole year coming into this game, and yet they had their hands full with them. Luckily, Zach Irvin had not Zach Irvin, but DJ Wilson had a double-double with 10 points and 11 rebounds. And Zach Irvin did have some contribution, going 5 of 10 shooting from the floor to come up with 16 points as a result. But it's a case of where, Derek Walton can't carry the load for you the whole time here. You're going to need more players to step up. DJ Wilson got the memo. I think for this game at least, Zach Irvin read the memo. But again, it's just a case of, wow, I can't wait for Zach Irvin to be off the team to graduate, because I'm just sick and tired of him coming up short in big games. It seems like wherever you need, it's a big game, whether it be against an in-state rival or a conference rival, or you need a good showing to stay alive in a tournament. Zach Irvin always comes up small, or fails to appear at all. I'm really glad this was a senior year, so I don't have to see any more of this. It seemed like a waste, so to speak, of all the time. Because Zach Irvin, it seemed like in his early years he had potential, as long as he could get his jump shot going. But we've seen now for 4 years he hasn't gotten his jump shot going yet. So I doubt he ever will, no matter where he plays basketball after this.
Speaking of back and forth games, Michigan, this was almost a back and forth game. Rutgers only had one lead, but Michigan kept their lead for most of the game, and they won 68-64 on the road in Rutgers, New Jersey. That it didn't look as easy as Michigan thought it would be, but you knew Rutgers had to take advantage and come close.
Another thing to take into consideration for this was Michigan struggled on the road, so that played a factor. Not to mention the fact that apparently this was a bit of a bad matchup rebounding-wise. Rutgers apparently coming into this was the 4th best rebounding team in the nation. Michigan, one of the top worst, so to speak. As this game, they were, I believe, ranked 346 out of 351 in terms of the rebounding performance or efficiency of teams across all of college basketball. That shows how bad Michigan is in that department. So they were going to be in for a bit of a grind with this one. So score, again, too close for comfort, but if you look at those aspects, probably not too much of a surprise. Why?
Michigan got away with that 68-64 win despite Rutgers out-rebounding them. So Michigan, the Wolverines, return home to play the now 14th-ranked Purdue Boilermakers Saturday at 4 on ESPN2. Purdue is another the most formidable opponent in the Big Ten Conference right now. They're in first place, are the Boilermakers.
Yeah, they're looking to hang on. They have, I believe, a 1-game lead over Wisconsin for the top spot in the conference. So they're trying to close in on winning another regular season conference title on the Boilermakers. Led in large part by their big man forward, Caleb Swanigan, the 6'9", 250-pound dude, who averages over 18 points on 54% shooting from the field, 78% from the free throw line. Remember, we've told the story before about he was very large with his weight, and has actually slimmed down from his younger days, where he was practically obese to the point where he is one of the best rebounders, not just in the Big Ten, but one of the best rebounders in the whole entire nation. You can look at it, if he keeps this up, because already he is a sophomore, so if he has another strong year, you can see him as a possible lottery prospect pick for the NBA draft. So a guy to look at would definitely be Caleb Swanigan in that instance.
After that, the Wolverines hit the road for 2. That's their last home game of the season. They go to Northwestern and then Nebraska on March 1st and the 5th at 7 and 8. Both games are on BTN, the Big Ten Network, and then the Big Ten tournament. So, Northwestern, let's see here. They got to be somewhere in the...
Northwestern, they are tied with Minnesota and Michigan State with conference record of 9-6.
They're 20-8 overall. That's pretty damn good.
I think they've been one of those surprises, so to speak, for the Big Ten this year. I believe the Northwestern basketball program has never made the tournament, the national tournament. So this will be another year first, so to speak. So the way they've been playing, they really want that spot. They don't want to leave anything up to chance. They're looking to finish strong on their own end.
Yep. So both the Spartans and Wolverines have their last home games of the season this upcoming Saturday, which is now later today. Oh, Spartans actually play on Sunday at 4 against the 16th-ranked Wisconsin Badgers. Wolverines play Saturday at 4 at Chrysler Center against the 14th-ranked Purdue Boilermakers. Now for my Central Michigan Chippewas. They have now lost 5 straight games overall.
Good Lord.
Yeah, they're tailing off. They came back to force overtime tied at 100. Actually, not tied at 100, but the Ball State Cardinals, the team that the Chippewas played last Saturday, came away with the win, 109 to 100 in overtime. CMU's defense was nowhere, and then the last 2 games, their offense started to tail off as well. Started to sink to the Titanic. They scored 66 points each at home. First at home to the Northern Illinois Huskies on Tuesday, and then they got out to a slow start and never recovered and never even came back. And they scored 66 against the Toledo Rockets and lost 87-66, 89-66 to NIU. The Chips are now 6 and I believe 10 in the MAC. Yeah, 6 and 10 in the MAC, 16 and 13 overall. That's not going to cut it. Chippewas now just a half game ahead of the Eastern Michigan Eagles from last place in the MAC West. A half game behind the Bowling Green Falcons in the entire MAC standings, and third last ahead of the Miami, Ohio Redhawks, who are 3-12 in Mid-American Conference action. So first their defense has been awful and getting out-rebounded. And now their offense is starting to take a douche dump. Plus, all those last 3 games, CMU committed over 10 turnovers, 15 at Toledo this past Friday night. 12 turnovers in the loss last week at McGurk Arena to the Buffalo Bulls, as I just recalled, before losing to the Ball State Cardinals. The lack of defense, the offense sinking down like an anchor of a boat ship. Not just the entire Titanic boat, but the speed of an anchor sinking down to the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. And also the turnovers. They sum up this in the exposure of this CMU men's basketball team, and maybe their coach as well. The team has gone from great to mediocre to worse. Usually they're mediocre, but right now they're worse than that. I think CMU should get an early first round exit in the first round of the MAC tournament again. They deserve it. They play their last home game on Tuesday against the Eastern Michigan Eagles at McGurk Arena on February 28th. That's Mardi Gras Day. That's Mardi Gras Day. And then they go to Kalamazoo at University Arena and play the Western Michigan Broncos on March 3rd at 7 on a Friday. And then the MAC tournament Monday, March 6th. So, bon voyage, CMU men's basketball team. I think they should fire Keno Davis, their head coach, in my opinion. Keno Davis has not led the Chippewas to a MAC tournament win, like in the past 2 or 3 years. As far as I can keep track. So that's all college basketball for you. Now to transition to the pros here, the Pistons here.
Left sideline, 3, and he answers.
They stand pat at the trade deadline, which doesn't get them anywhere, of course. Andre Drummond and Reggie Jackson and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope were reportedly available, but obviously nobody wanted any of the aforementioned. Personally, I think they could have traded Aaron Baines to give Boban Marjanovic more playing time, but I guess that can wait until next season, until the offseason, when the Pistons can decline Baines' option for next year, $6.5 million, and make Boban the backup center for Andre Drummond if the Pistons don't get rid of Andre. But Stan Van Gundy didn't want to do that because Stan Van Gundy doesn't want to play Boban for some reason in most games. He even though he doesn't give Aaron Baines much playing time on most games either. Boban is once again your actual backup center, and he's proved it more than Aaron Baines has. And sometimes Aaron Baines can rebound, but he just can't score. He definitely can't hit putbacks with one hand in traffic, for God's sakes. Those are so ugly I can't even stand to look at them.
And his defense definitely leaves a lot left to be desired.
Yeah, very soft, in my opinion. Baines should shave his hair and his beard. Because it's still killing him, even though he tied all of his hair on top of his head in a short ponytail.
I doubt changing hairstyles would magically improve his game. This is
no.
Type of magical basketball story. Look,
I'm just making a remark. But it's not magic. It's not magically, but anyway, Baines is horrible.
That we can agree on.
Yep, Boban's the new backup center. He's too tall not to be, and he's more consistent than Baines, and he can corral the ball. He can get more rebounds. He can score. He can block shots too.
He can even move the ball well for a big guy.
Yeah, absolutely. He's very tall, very lean. That's what I like as a player. Don't we both wish Boban was a number one center? I know he's not going to be, but
not number one center. But with the amount of money that you're paying him, eventually I would expect him to be your primary backup center.
Yeah.
Especially if you decline Baines' option.
Spot on. So after that trade deadline, the Pistons trailed by as many as 18, and then they came back, outscored the Charlotte Hornets 30-15 in the fourth quarter, and tied it with KCP's game-tying three-pointer with 18.2 seconds left. And the Pistons won 114-108 in overtime. A thrilling victory for the Detroit Pistons. That sent the Charlotte Hornets down even further in 11th place. The Pistons are now even closer to the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference. They're even edging in on the 6th seed too. The Milwaukee Bucks trail them in 9th place. Pistons, who on earth is in 7th place? I know the Pacers are in 6th place right now. It's the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls, yep. Pistons 28-30 now. Bulls 29-29. Pacers 30-28. 11, 12, and 13 games back. Now it's the Miami Heat who are in 10th place. It's 26-32. That's 2 games back of the Pistons. Bucks are 25-31, 15 games back, even though they have a little bit of a lower winning percentage than the Heat have, 448 to 446. Pistons just we can only hope for the best as the 6th seed. I think that's about as close as the Pistons can come as of right now. But
the 6th seed should be their ceiling. Their goal to get to as close as possible, because if they're ranked 7th or 8th, they'll have a very difficult time, especially in the 8th seed. If they're the 8th seed again, like they were last year, most likely they'll be facing the Cavaliers in the first round again, and most likely, like last year, they'll be swept in the first round again. I doubt it'll be on the same level as competitive as it was last year. But that'll be a to be determined, if you could say that. I had some brief thoughts about the trade deadline. If I could give them a grade, so to speak, I'm not sure. I don't know if this was one of the 5 questions or not, but I felt
it's on the trade. It's on 5 questions actually.
Okay.
Yeah, the way I would grade them after standing pat, just incomplete.
I'll give them a grade. Yeah, if you want to give them a grade, I would say a C-. It was especially when you take into consideration the bargain price that they asked for. Like, for instance, for Reggie Jackson, I think they wanted a young player, an expiring contract, and a first-round pick. That would be good if you were, say, offering Andre Drummond for that instance, for that same bargain, but I'm not so sure if you're going to be getting that same type of feelers back for offering Reggie Jackson. As for Andre Drummond, I doubt, I'm not sure, like I said, there was some talks of apparently there was an earlier consideration of the Kings wanting to, or the Pistons trying to swap player for player Andre Drummond to Sacramento for DeMarcus Cousins. In hindsight, that looked to be a far better deal than what Sacramento ultimately took. So you have to question what the fuck were they thinking in that aspect. Nothing against Buddy Hield. I think he has potential to be a good player, but really giving away arguably the best center in the game for a bag of peanuts and an unproven rookie, questionable to say the least. You would have almost rather taken one of the other options, i.e., swapping Drummond for Cousins. You may get the same, a similar case of a lack of maturity or mental maturity from the standpoint of Drummond. But you would at least gotten yourself a good return in exchange for giving up DeMarcus Cousins. Now, what do you have here? If you're Sacramento, you have fucking nothing. So, I'm glad the Pistons didn't follow that same line of thinking. They saw what Sacramento did and said, look, if we're not going to get a good enough return for giving up either one of our valued guys like KCP or Reggie or Drummond, then you would rather stay pat. So if they went that route, fine, I have no issue. But the negative of that aspect is by staying pet, you don't really make a dramatic change of how better or worse your chances look. You could either say, hey, if it went bad by trading Drummond and or Jackson, you could say, hey, it went bad, but we at least guarded up a draft pick, some good leverage, some good return value, and got ourselves a possible good lottery pick. If we take that, for instance, or if we made a positive change, it gives us a better chance of winning a couple games and possibly winning a series in the first round of the playoffs instead of getting upended and dominated by, say, Cleveland or Toronto or Boston. So it's for the Pistons to have any type of chance of having marginal success in the playoffs. You have to get as close, higher up in the seed rankings as possible. You said they're not that far away off from the 7th, and or the 6th seed. That's good because that should be their goal. I don't think they have enough to get to the 5th seed per se, but 6th seed would make me feel better, more comfortable about their chances of at least winning a game in this year's playoffs, or at least close to winning a series in this year's playoffs.
Yeah, there's a very slight chance they can get in the 5th seed, but that's all the possibilities the Pistons have in terms of reaching as high of a seed as they can in totality. So the Pistons play the now second-place Boston Celtics Sunday at 6. They play the Portland Trail Blazers Tuesday at 7:30, and then the New Orleans Pelicans Wednesday at 8. The Pistons, last meeting, they beat the Pelicans for the first time since 2008, I guess. That's been a long time. And then they go to Philadelphia Saturday at 6 and play the 76ers. That should be an easy game.
Should be a layup. By the way, quick mention of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's fantastic performance against the Hornets. Not only did he have 33 points, 7 of 15 from three-point land, including that big shot to tie it up late, he also had 0 turnovers. So that was the first time, I believe, that a Piston had scored at least 30 points and not committed a single turnover since Rip Hamilton did against the Raptors January 15, 2008. Same Rip Hamilton, who, by the way, will be getting his jersey retired by the Pistons this coming Sunday.
That's true. And coming up with that many points and not committing a turnover is just a crowning achievement for an individual. And you got to give Kentavious Caldwell-Pope props. He's been a go-to guy for the Pistons as of this season, as of right now, thus far. He's improving a little bit on his field goal shooting, kind of from B- to mid-range B or even B+. But he's just got to keep developing. The only thing he's lacking is the defense.
Yeah, but he's definitely coming to his own, and it's
so
proven something.
By the way.
Yeah, but definitely. But on the subject of KCP, he's coming to his own to the point where you have to consider him a valuable assets to this team, not just on the floor but off the floor in terms of possible trade innuendo that people were reading up on before the deadline passed. Unfortunately, nobody took it for granted, but still, KCP should be seen as valuable for the Pistons because, remember, let's not forget that one stretch during the road trip, those road trips, where he got injured and their offense suffered as a result for it. So, make no mistake about it, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a viable and valuable part of this Pistons team, how they operate from the offensive standpoint and just overall how they move on the floor. So, the way he keeps playing, most likely he's going to give himself a max contract in the off season. You can almost see it happening if he keeps up this level of play. The question is, knowing the money that they're already paying both Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond, will the Pistons be willing to take on another max deal of that caliber, or can they find a way to meet somewhere in the middle, where yes, they can pay KCP his money, but they don't have to pay too much, so as they can possibly try to go after another player of sorts, either help with their bench or help with their starting lineup.
Yep, and hopefully KCP can keep all that up. Help the Pistons reach that 6th seed. Of course, Andre Drummond still collecting double-doubles. Reggie Jackson, etc., all that jazz. So hopefully the Pistons just keep in the playoff hunt, keep in that playoff picture in the 6 to 8 seed range. So with the Pistons out of the way, we now dissect the Red Wings now in short form. The Red Wings beat the Capitals and the Penguins 3-2 in a shootout on Saturday, and then 5-2 in Pittsburgh, as seen on NBC broadcast with Mike Emmerich, Eddie Olczyk, and Pierre Maguire. The Red Wings were playing the President's Trophy leading Washington Capitals, and the Red Wings had a 2-0 lead. The Capitals came back to tie it in forced overtime, but the Red Wings managed to get this to a shootout and win. They're now 7-0 in a shootout. Thomas Vanek scored another goal. Henrik Zetterberg is now 3 for 3 in the shootout. And then on Sunday, the Penguins shot themselves in the foot, and the Red Wings actually took advantage and pounded the Penguins 5-2. Nick Jensen getting another goal, the second of his career. And Steve Ott, of all friggin' people, getting a goal and an assist.
2 points for Steve fucking Ott.
Oh, man. Well,
2 points in one game.
From out of nowhere.
2 points in 1 month, yet he does it in one game.
As WWE announcer Michael Cole would say, from out of nowhere. Steve Ott may be a washed-up veteran, but I give him credit for that, for coming up with those 2 points. Fairly speaking. And then they return home and they shit their own bed again, 3-1 to the New York Islanders, who are mad and out for revenge. They close the door on the Wings offense. Forgot who scored that only goal for the Wings. I think Mike Green.
Might have been. I know Nielsen had the assist.
Yep. Yeah, Nielsen keeps slowly but surely picking up his points. Franz Nielsen. But Grice was Thomas Grice was fantastic in net, but the Red Wings committed Peter Mrazek committed a turnover to set the tone for the Islanders. A stupid turnover when he could have passed it to Nicholas Kronwall, who was wide open, and he gave it to an Islander player, and they scored a goal. And the Islanders never looked back.
Yeah, not the smartest of sequences, for sure.
Yep. So after that loss, 3-1 in regulation, the Wings are now still in the bottom 2 of the Eastern Conference. I think they're in last place again, as the last I checked. The Carolina Hurricanes just recently shut out the Ottawa Senators 3-0. So the Hurricanes tie the Wings and Stars with 58 points. The Wings are currently fourth worst in the NHL. That's dead. Yeah, the Hurricanes jumped the Wings and the Canucks. So the Wings are dead last in the Eastern Conference again. 24, 26, and 10 with 58 points. The Canucks 26, 28, and 6. The Hurricanes 25, 24, and 8. the Dallas Stars just recently beat the Arizona Coyotes 5-2 in Dallas. So the Stars tie the Wings, Hurricanes, and Canucks with 58 points. The Stars are now 24-27-10, just one more regulation loss than the Wings, just one step away from surpassing the Wings, who may soon be a recipient of a top 3 NHL draft pick overall.
We'll have to see. It was not a good start because remember they got 2 back-to-back wins. Yet unbelievably over the 2 best teams, not just the Eastern Conference, but the whole league. But they did follow it up by having a bad loss against the Islanders. Mm-hmm. Interesting to see how their schedule coming up, how they could manage to look even worse. Because granted, they do have a big road trip here coming up. We're talking 5 games here. Starts Tuesday, Vancouver, will end on March 8th in Boston. That'll be a strong team to finish that road trip. Then they come back home. Oh, here's your 2 home games. When you come back home, you face the Blackhawks and the Rangers. So let's hope, the tanking effort goes around better this time around, especially after this upcoming stretch. Excuse me, because it didn't have a good start. But hopefully, you have a better chance on the retake. Also, in terms of, if you want to say, the rebuild, so to speak, they made a move with their roster, if we want to talk about that this week. Today, in fact.
Yeah. And speaking of the Blackhawks, the Red Wings, during their bye week, which is occurring right now, have traded left winger Tomas Jurko to the Chicago Blackhawks for a 2017 third-round draft pick. And I thought that was a sign of Ken Holland, their general manager, finally pushing a correct button. But that's going to be another one of our 5 questions later on. But Ken Holland decided to trade down, Ed. Can you believe that?
I know. That may be a bigger surprise than the Pistons not doing a damn thing on the trade deadline.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep an eye out for more trades yet to come. Also, Jeff Moss, the founder and editor-in-chief of the Detroit Sports Rag, said the Red Wings can get more money for Thomas Vanek. Let's see here. Let's see if I'm scrolling down here.
I believe you mentioned something about if you can get a third-round pick for Jurko, who's to say you can't get possibly a first-round pick for Vanek?
Uh-huh.
Which he might not be too far off from that, the way Vanek's been playing this year.
At Jeff Moss DSR is his Twitter handle right now. He was also tweeting, Jurko was bombing the Wings in the offseason for a lack of communication when he was still on the team. Can't wait to hear his comments now.
Yeah, kind of, a little bit of a reaction.
Here's the tweet I was looking for. They could get, from Jeff Moss DSR, they could get a first-round pick for Vanek, and I read yesterday in Hockey News that the Red Wings would get more from Mike Green than Kevin Shattenkirk, the defenseman of the St. Louis Blues. More money, that is. Also, according to Craig Custance, one scout on Tomas Jurko acquired by the Blackhawks, quote, I've always thought he had a little bit more skill than what we have seen from him, unquote. And from Prashant Iyer at Iyer_Prashant, going back to the discussion of asset management, Jurko's a guy I'd use to fill out the bottom 6. Cheap at $900,000, the team wins the shot battle when on the ice.
Wow.
Brian Cavanaugh, one of Jeff Moss's followers, tweeted at BCAV93, my hopes for Jurko developing in Detroit had died a while ago. Curious to see if a change of scenery helps him or if he's just a mad player. The Red Wings article said Jurko has now a change of scenery. The Red Wings get a draft pick meantime. But Ed, you had something to say.
I was going to mention that something along the thoughts between BKF and Prashant Iyer. Bud Jericho had a little bit more promise when he started out. Unfortunately, it didn't pan out how how I would have personally liked to see it. So I think BKF does have a point. Maybe a change of scenery is necessary. And also in this instance, we get something in return that seems to have a good enough value, equal to his value. Hopefully we can use that to turn into something quite productive instead of wasting it. But who knows with Ken Holland as your GM.
That's true, because Ken Holland, as some people feared, might make a trade for another washed-up veteran. But that was not the case this past Friday late afternoon. As I mentioned, as I talked about on my special report edition of the Michigan Sports Truth on Blog Talk Radio, when the Wings made that trade official, sending Yurko to the Hawks for that third-round pick in the 2017 NHL Draft, which is upcoming this summer. So we'll keep an eye out for more trades that the Red Wings may make if they do. Meantime, we wait for the Wings to get back on the ice and shit their bed again at the Vancouver Canucks at Rogers Arena Tuesday at 10. Then they go to Scotiabank Saddledome Friday at 9 in Calgary against the Flames. And then they go to Rogers Place, used to be called Rexall Place, in Edmonton against the Oilers Saturday at 10. Then they go to Toronto and then Boston. Then they're back home against Chicago and the New York Rangers, as Ed mentioned. So, with all the Red Wings ground being covered, it's time for Tiger Talk here.
That one is long gone.
First off, let's recap the spring training games here, the first two spring training games that took place. Tigers shut out the Florida Southern College Moccasins 8-0. Mikey Matuk got an RBI double. Stephen Moya 1 for 2 with 2 RBIs, and Miguel Gonzalez with a solo home run. And then Michael Fulmer pitched one scoreless inning in a 2-0 loss to the Baltimore Orioles in the first Major League versus Major League spring training matchup in Lakeland, Florida at Joker Martin Stadium. Alex Avila in that game, though, got a leadoff single and a walk. Those were his only 2 plate appearances in that game. Avila continues to prove how good he is at getting on base. But speaking of Mikey Matuk, he is among 4 players that are competing for the center field job. Unfortunately, Omar Infante is not one of them, although he wanted to compete for the center field job. A report from Jason Beck from MLB.com and Tigers.com says Omar Infante won't see much time. So apparently, Infante will see more time as a backup middle infielder, possibly second base behind Ian Kinsler. I'm sure he'll still be better than Andrew Romine is, as usual.
Oh, far better.
Far better, yeah.
I mean, I expected to see this anyway. When I saw the signing being announced, this doesn't really surprise me hearing this.
Yeah, so you get Alex Avila and Omar Infante back on the Tigers roster. Isn't that something? Yeah. Think about how it affects Andrew Romine's spot on the Tigers roster. How can it affect Romine's spot? Maybe the Tigers could do something with Andrew Romine if Infante proves way better than Romine can in this upcoming regular season. Or preseason, too, for that matter. think about that.
It's an interesting scenario to visualize, but definitely would like to wait to see how everything comes about as months progress.
Right, still a wait-and-see approach, but I'll bet Infante can outplay Romine. In most games, if not all. Everybody's going to have a bad game, but still, Omar Infante should be your number one backup middle infielder, above all else. So, to the center field job, the four named competitors for that position will be Tyler Collins, Anthony Ghost, Jacoby Jones, and Mikey Matuk. Now, it's still a wait-and-see approach, but I believe Mikey Matuk can take that position.
Matuk seems to be a possible option, especially because he seems to be, I believe, what he is the oldest of that group. Has some more experience. Has some experience that can help him out in that regard.
Yeah, he's older and has more experience than Tyler Collins, Jacoby Jones, and Anthony Ghost. Even combined, I think I don't know how old Matuk is. I haven't even looked at his age yet, but he is older than each of those other three players. I think. The inside question would be who would be the backup center fielder coming this regular season. But this is all part of one of our 5 questions, which is coming up next. So it's still a wait and see approach, but I believe Mikey Matuk will take the number 1 spot. So, with that being said, speaking of which, it is time for 5 questions. Are you ready, Ed?
Absolutely, Taylor, so go ahead and let him rip.
It's time for 5 questions on the Michigan Sports Truth.
Tigers play the Astros Saturday at 1:05 in Lakeland, Florida, by the way. Question number 1, and this is something to do with Dr. Larry Nassar and his upcoming punishment. Should only females be gymnastic coaches and doctors instead of men, or technically, should only females be coaches and doctors of women's gymnastics instead of men?
I understand the reasoning behind that type of logic or that decision. Myself, personally, I think it only comes down to A, you have your ducks in a row in terms of who you're interviewing this position, and B, make sure that the background checks on said person are accurate and up to date, so you don't have situations like this where shit could really go bad and blow up on you. I think it should come down to who is qualified, and I don't care if you're a man or a woman. I don't give a shit if you're a dinosaur. If you're qualified to do the spot that you're at, you should be hired, no questions asked. So I think singling out a gender would probably be a bit unnecessary. I understand the reasoning, though, like I said before, so you don't want to prevent situations like this from happening again. But it should definitely come down to A, if you're qualified, and B, if your background check matches up with what the perceived notion of the employer that's trying to hire you.
Yeah, especially if you have no criminal record whatsoever. That puts the cherry on top of the sundae right there.
Yeah, so I think that should be a better qualification on your hiring ability rather than your gender per se.
Mm-hmm. So moving on.
Next question.
Question number 2, what are the chances of the Michigan Wolverines and Michigan State Spartans making the NCAA or NIT tournament?
Better chance of making the NCAA, even though they will be a good consideration for the NIT if they do miss the NCAA. But what they're at right now, it'll be close, like real close, cutting it close, I should say. But as long as they don't have a disaster in these last 3 games and in the early going of their conference tournament, they should get in. It'll be by a close margin. It'll probably be barely, but they should be able to get in. So I would say the chances are very good for both teams to make the big dance.
You mentioned on your format script that MSU is one of those teams that's still on the bubble.
Yeah, ESPN currently has them as teams with work still left to do, them and Michigan. That's why I had them, I categorized Michigan and MSU as both bubble teams as of now, going into these last few games.
Yeah, and if they actually don't make the NCAA tournament, that would be that would be a big blow to Tom Izzo in the athletic department.
Surprising. I think, this would be the first time in a long, long time that this happened. Because I remember a stretch a few years back, it might have been 2011 to 2012, where Michigan State looked like they weren't going to get in, but they managed to have a good enough second half as to where they got into the tournament. Now, obviously, they didn't have a long run. I think they lost in the first round or so, first or second round. But they managed to rally and have a strong second half to get in. So it might be the same case that we're seeing here this year.
We'll see what happens.
Next question.
Question number 3, how did the Pistons fare after standing pat by the NBA trade deadline?
Well, in terms of their roster, it's what else can you say? They made little to no changes at all. So they find where they're at right now by their aspects here. I think it comes down to if both Drummond and Jackson can get mentally involved to where they aren't seen as a bad look for the team, then they should have no problem performing because they have the ability, the potential, especially with those two, to really make some noise and have a strong enough finish here. But it all speaks to how mentally involved those two players are. And so the more they are involved mentally, the stronger the Pistons are as a whole and as a result. I would say if I would grade how they would look like after this trade deadline, it's a C- because no, they didn't make any moves at all. But I think you would rather make no moves at all than to make the dumbass moves the Sacramento Kings might have done, for instance. So by that grade, I would give the Pistons a C or a C-.
Next question.
Question number 4, is Red Wings general manager Ken Holland finally starting to push the right buttons again, or is the Thomas Yurko trade to the Chicago Blackhawks just a small sample size? Technically, as of right now, I would say Ken Holland was getting rid of a player that hasn't gotten much ice time, just like Drew Miller, when he hoped to be traded, but was hoping to be traded by the trade deadline, which is next Thursday or Friday on March 3rd.
Mm-hmm. So maybe I'm leaning more towards the sample size part of the argument here. Where with Holland, you just don't know where he's gauging. He could be getting ready to tank, or he could be, set himself up to sign another Washington better in the off season. You never know. That's how he operates nowadays. So you'd rather wait for more time to pass by than you would by giving an immediate grade for this, saying, "Oh yeah, this is where they're going to definitely make more changes afterwards." So this is definitely a wait and see approach for sure, in my opinion, when it comes to this move.
It's a wait and see approach, but I'm looking at more of a tank than just looking more forward to the off season.
But just not too confident to state it.
The thing about this, again, the Red Wings could be the third worst NHL team if they if they hope for the Star, if hopefully the Stars win out again in their next game. So, last but not least,
Next question.
Question number 5, who should get the starting center field position from opening day forward for the Tigers? I'd say anybody but Tyler Collins and Anthony Gose. Anybody but those two fucknuts. I'd say Mikey Matuk.
You're not too far off saying that. But to be different, I would say give Jacoby Jones a chance to see how he does.
Oh,
but I do agree with you. Anybody but Gose and Collins, they can fuck off.
Yeah, Mikey Matuk, the number 1 spot. Jacoby Jones, the backup. Sounds fair to you?
Other way around, it doesn't matter, but yeah, I have no problems with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's our 5 question segment. For all the listeners and fans out there, if you want to answer those questions, just replay the episode and answer them in the comment bank below this episode. That wraps up episode 253 of Spreaker's feed on the Michigan Sports Truth. Ed, I'll talk to you again next week on episode 254, and we can update the fallout and the punishment for Dr. Larry Nassar.
Where is your honor, dirtbag? You are an absolute disgrace.
And see how many years in prison he will serve. And he will serve life. He will serve time in prison. Better be life.
Not to mention the recap of senior day for both Michigan and MSU. And see how,
CMU
and see how whether or not the Red Wings continue their tank process. And what much of a job did the Pistons do post-trade deadline. So, still good number of stuff to get up to next episode. Can't wait to do it.
As well as more Tiger spring training results as well, with more individual performances too. So, again, talk to you next week. Get some rest.
Absolutely, Taylor. Thanks. You do the same.
Yep, absolutely. So before we sign off, a couple things here. The Shitty 16 round starts Sunday at 10:30, I believe, of Jeff Moss's DSR Worst Detroit Sports Media Personality Tournament bracket. Shitty 16 ends Monday at 10:30. You can follow Jeff Moss's Twitter handle online on Twitter at JeffMossDSR. Also, I want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media. Have their friends share that as well. And follow me on Spreaker as Taylor Phillips online at Spreaker.com, because I want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth podcast is in search of local advertising sponsors. If anyone has a business that's interested in sponsoring this program, you can follow Sports Radio Detroit on Twitter at Sports Radio DET, at Sports Radio Det, and send them a direct message or email them at sportsradiodetroit.com in the contact section. Also, contact Roger Castillo by email at rajcast81@gmail.com. Also, like their Facebook page and join their Facebook group. And finally, find their podcasts available on iTunes and Podbean. For Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow us on Twitter at DT2Phillips with 2 L's and at EdSmith313. And like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join our Facebook group with the same name. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks very much for listening. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
Bon appetit.